Today's episode is sponsored by the 29 Toes podcast. If at any point during this episode you find yourself a little too uncomfortable and triggered, you can head over to 29toes.com and kind of decompress your brain a little bit, where they're just having casual, laid-back, fun, funny conversations about things that are going on in their lives, in the world, things in media and entertainment, all that fun stuff. So check them out at 29toes.com or wherever podcasts are sold. The following is a Goulash Media production. goulashmedia.net.
Welcome to the System is Down.
Hello, what is up, Downers? Happy Monday to you. I hope you're having a great drive to your place of employment or from, or maybe you're brave enough to listen to this at work. But thanks for tuning in. Welcome back to the least comfortable show on the web. This is, as you know, The System is Down. This is a place where we talk about all the uncomfortable topics, the things that trigger you and get your panties in a wad, things like conspiracies, politics, and religion, the things that make most people uncomfortable. But this is your one-stop shop for all things anti-political correctness. This is a place where you come if you are offended by people who are offended by things, because there is nothing that we will not talk about here, and we will do so in a frank and civil manner. So, welcome to the show. If you're new here, go find the person who invited you, give him a big hashtag me too, slap on the rear, and kiss on the mouth from you and me, because I appreciate you being here, and you're going to enjoy this episode. I guarantee it, because today, a lot of the time, I, seek out people who are experts in different strange avenues of thought and get them on to educate me and hopefully educate you in the process. But also sometimes when we're able to, we might just break a story. We might just throw something out there that you don't know about, and in hopes that we can expose some injustices that are going on in the world. And that's exactly what we're doing today. Today I am talking with good friend of the show, Remso Martinez, who has been on quite a few times, talked about a lot of different things. Remso is a great guy, and I always love talking to him, but he is in the process of uncovering Project Dragonfly, which I won't get too much into the details because Remso is the guy with the knowledge on this topic, as you will find out. And it turns out that Google's shady son of a bitch, surprise, surprise, and they are trying to cover their ass in ways in their dealings with things that are quite interesting and shady. So I'll leave it at that. I'll let Remso explain the rest, and we'll get into that here in just a moment. Before we do, I got to remind you guys about the Downers Club, which is our Patreon program. It's what helps keep the show going. If you like the show, if you'd like to support it, and if you'd like to get more content, you can do so by going to patreon.com/The System is Down. We do a bunch of bonus audio and video episodes of the show every single week for you guys, and one of those is actually Remso and I do a game show called Would You Rather Wednesday, where we just get really gross and offensive playing a game of Would You Rather. But we also do extended interviews. We do movie and TV reviews, and we do the anti-news extended after-party episodes. A whole bunch of stuff in there, so go check it out. Patreon.com/The System is Down. You can get it for as little as a cup of coffee a month. Go check that out, and I would love you forever if you did. But let's jump into this. This is, again, my conversation with friend of the show, Remso Martinez. So, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's get weird. My guest today is author, journalist, podcaster, content creator, good friend of the show, and returning guest, the one and only, the illustrious Remso Martinez. Remso, how's it going, man?
Dan, always great to be here. What's up?
What's up, man? So, Remso, I've been planning on having you back on to talk about a couple things related to social media, but you've got you hit me up about a story that you're working on uncovering and some interesting things that are going on in the Google sphere. So Before we jump into that, why don't you give an update on what you've been up with and the books that you're working on, the podcast, and all that stuff that you got going on?
So as of right now, I'm working on a book called How to Succeed in Politics and Other Forms of Devil Worship, which I will be releasing in June 2020 to align with the Democratic primaries.
Nice.
So at that point, what I'm hoping is that book, it won't be talking about the 2020 cycle, but if you're a nerd, if you want to kind of have an understanding of the past and where we're going in terms of our politics, I think everything going on will kind of justify what I'm discussing in the book. So it's How to Succeed in Politics and Other Forms of Devil Worship, coming out in June 2020. But for now, what I've been doing is I'm a contributor and investigative journalist for And Magazine. I've been doing investigative journalism for about 2 years now, and has provided me a platform. So it's andmagazine.com. But recently what I did was I've begun to really cover a lot more of the strange stuff going on with Google. It seems that with Facebook and Twitter, a lot of people, a lot of center-right commentators and such were going after the obvious things. And what were the obvious things? The obvious things were literal censorship. They were shadow banning people. They were kicking people off platforms, deplatforming them, like what we've seen the past 2 years pretty extensively. So that's been a bit of a big issue, but Google has often confused a lot of people. People knew that Google was definitely progressive and that rumors had been coming out that they were messing with their algorithms to ensure that certain people could not actually find the results for what they were actually looking for. And it really came out about, I want to say about 2 years ago in 2017, you had the CEO of Minds.com. Minds.com is a blockchain-based social network. It's a competitor to Facebook with around 30 million users. And you had basically this problem where people could not find Minds at all if you went searching through Google. Even if you did Minds.com, Minds social network, they were preventing that from happening because who's one of Google's big clients in terms of advertising? It's Facebook.
Right.
So what you had was Phil Ottman, the CEO of Minds, go on the Tucker Carlson show, and he was basically like, listen, you can go to any other search engine and check out Minds.com, and we'll be one of the first results that comes up. But you go on Google, and we won't come up because we're a competitor to the system. We're not a corporate social network. Mm-hmm. We're completely different. We're basically owned by our users, essentially. And this really started to do a lot of digging into Google. And then the video leaked of the Google employees reacting to the 2016 election. And we all basically found out that they think that anyone that's not a diehard progressive is stupid and racist and everything else. So Google has been under that microscope, but not really for the same reasons, because a lot of the censorship stuff with their results was not getting as much coverage as the more obvious things like what was going on Twitter and Facebook. So around summer 2018, The Intercept and the Media Research Center actually started uncovering leaked documents from Google employees and Google board members that basically there was this big problem where Google would have gotten a contract from the U.S. government to help with some type of AI research for drone capabilities, and the board universally said no to that. So here you are, they're making a stand against doing stuff with the defense industry, even though that they do stuff with the government all the time. But what was really weird was they had a lot of these board members that were like, yeah, we're taking a stand. We won't do every client that goes against our conscience and crap like that. And then what they did was they were like, hey, China wants to bring us in to possibly allow us to become their, an available search engine. Because if you go to China, there's a state-run search engine which censors and tracks people, and it's really nasty stuff. Mm-hmm. So you have Sundar Pichai who's talking to China, and they're like, hey, China might bring us in. But China's like, yeah, we'll bring you in. It'll be a new market for you. But by the way, we want you to actually basically be the same search engine that we already have, but we'd also like you to potentially, find a way not to give us aggregate data from users, but give us individual data from users. So that way, if people are searching things that we don't want them to, we can incorporate their social credit score or accuse them of a crime, and then we'll go ahead and kill them or throw them in a concentration camp or prison.
Hooray.
Now, what would you get? Now, what reaction would you expect if you were told that? Did Sunders say, no, that's screwed up? No, he said, well, let's go ahead, talk about this. Let's see what we could do. So they developed a program called Project Dragonfly. More information got out. They tried to deny it until essentially it became public in December of 2018 during a joint hearing of Congress where, all the information about Project Dragonfly came out. And Sunders basically saying, oh, it's just a thing. But all the documents are saying, no, it was more than just a thing. It was going to happen soon. He said it was nowhere close to being finished. And you had engineers on that project that were saying, no, it was almost done. So then about a week after the hearing, Google CEO goes to the media and says, yeah, we went ahead and ended it. They were like, okay, so it's done. You're never going to do it. And he was like, oh, we're not going to rule it out. We might do it again one day. It's not hard for Google just to say we're not evil and we're not going to do evil things. Right. But he was basically like, no, we're not going to stick with the things that you caught. We're going to go ahead and stick with, the option of being able to do it in the future. And when people were like, so why did you cancel it? Did you cancel it because everyone found out? He said, no, we just had a lack of resources. And it's like, Google, how do you have a lack of resources?
Right. You are the resources.
Yeah. So here's where things get weird. LibertyCon, which is run by Students for Liberty. It's one of the largest libertarian conventions during the year. Google was one of their sponsors this past weekend. Well, I mean, I don't know when you're listening to this, but this was, LibertyCon 2019 in January, and I went on January 19th.
Sure.
And they had Max Pappas, who's the manager for public policy and external outreach, and he showed up and he's talking about how much he loves libertarians and how great Google is and how we need a free and open internet for the sake of humanity. And I'm listening to this. I'm like, this is kind of weird. Like, this guy really sounds like he's here just to kiss our ass to make us think that Google's not evil.
Right.
So he goes across the hallway after his speech, and he's taking questions from people. And, I ask him, hey, like, what's up with Dragonfly? Like, this kind of juxtaposes everything, and you guys haven't given a clear, warm and fuzzy about whether or not you've learned from it. Even whether or not it's not even sincere. I want an actual statement because, you guys are talking about it. He said he didn't know what I was talking about. Then I explained to him what I was talking about, everything I just mentioned to you guys. You guys are going to work with China, and this is not going to go well for people.
So he claimed that he had never even heard of the project.
He claimed he had never even heard of it. Then he was like, so what are your sources? And I was like, well, Ryan Gallagher at The Intercept, who's been the lead journalist uncovering all this, the Media Research Center, and Democratic Senator from Virginia, Mark Warner, who's also been a big advocate against this. And he said, well, all your sources are wrong. I was like, okay, can you please state how I'm wrong? I wasn't going to say, no, they're not wrong, you're wrong. It's like, okay, where are they wrong? Let's have a conversation about this. What were they saying or doing, which is a lie?
Trying to sweep you under the rug and hope you stop asking.
Yeah, and then, I asked him that, and here's his reply. I know as much as you do. So you're telling me that the manager for public policy and external outreach at Google, who knew he was probably going to get asked to this libertarian convention,
right,
accuses me of making stuff up, having bad information, and then he basically plays coy and says, I don't know anything. I know nothing. I know nothing.
Here's the thing. If you know as much as I do, then you know about Project Dragonfly, and you just said that you don't. So explain.
Yeah, and I mean, here's the weird thing. Like, I'm not a trust buster. I don't necessarily think that getting the government of all people involved in these big social media networks and big tech giants is good. But like, there's a problem because I actually got, followed by a couple people who attended that Q&A session, and they weren't Google employees for all I know, but they were yelling at me. They're like, how could you say that about Google? Google's our friend. And it's like, listen, guys, there's this false dichotomy that everything government is bad, everything private is good. That's not true.
Right.
You think that Google loves you? No, they don't. And what we do know about them is that they're cronies to the nth degree. Mm-hmm. So just because they're private doesn't mean they're less scumbaggy when it comes to this stuff. And if you really cared about the truth, you'd be asking questions to Max Pappas too after I left the room.
Right.
So
I mean,
yeah.
their big beef with you asking about it was what? Just that they're a private company, and because you're a libertarian, you should be in support of them, or what?
That was essentially it. It was a lazy argument. They're like, well, Google said it's not true. I'm like, how can Google say it's not true, but then evidence shows that it is true?
Right.
I mean, Google, like, you can't even say I'm going to search something. People say I'm going to Google something. And what they do is they pay these progressive indulgences by being good to the LGBTQ community, talking about climate change. Google wants people to think that they're one of them. That's why they sent a guy that's talking about Hayek and spontaneous order to a libertarian convention, because they want you to think that Google is just one of you. You're
Right.
inside, the clique. You're one of the cool kids. They're not capable of being evil.
Right. So, I don't. So Google has come out, and I wasn't hugely familiar with Project Dragonfly. I'd heard a little bit about it, but Google has said, yes, this was a thing that we were doing, and we have decided to not do it right now. And then the Google guy says that it wasn't actually a thing, and you're making this stuff up.
Yes.
Okay.
And folks, I will have the actual article out. We're just fact checking a few more things, but I'll be sending it to Dan, and we'll be posting it in the TSID forum. But like, everything is out there, and Ryan Gallagher, who's a fantastic journalist who's been covering Project Dragonfly from day one, like, he's dealing with the actual sources from within Google. He actually has the memos and everything talking about this.
Mm-hmm.
And what's really kind of screwed up is that, I was asking these questions on a Saturday when Pappas is saying that, he knows nothing, and all these people are getting upset that I'm calling out Google.
Right.
But around, 20 different major cities around the world, there were planned protests by a whole bunch of human rights commissions that were basically protesting Google, saying, it's not good enough that Project Dragonfly, existed, and you guys decided to end it when you got caught. You guys are saying that you might continue it in the future if a couple details change. How hard is it to say that you won't work with authoritarian governments to censor the internet?
Right.
And Google's not saying anything about it. And those protests got almost no coverage. CNN didn't cover it. WashPo didn't cover it. No one was covering it except a couple of local outlets. I mean, the protests weren't big, but these were 20 simultaneous protests. You do this for anything else, and CNN and the rest of the fake news will go ahead and say, oh, millions of people showed up. But there's a reason why they don't want anyone to talk about this. And that's because Google has their tentacles everywhere.
Right. Yeah, I find it fascinating that with all the YouTube censorship and all the Facebook censorship and everything that Google has its hands in that's been going on, that they would even have the balls to show up at a libertarian convention and expect to not, have people take them through the ringer.
It was weird, man. And I was the only journalist in that room.
Hmm.
That's the really disturbing thing. And I'm not saying this is a conspiracy. I'm just saying it's ironic to prove a point. But across the street from me, you had the Women's March.
Yeah.
Here's my question. How is the Women's March actually news? It's really not.
Right.
You're not going to learn anything new from the Women's March. You've got the left that's going to say it's beautiful. You've got the right that's going to say they're all nasty women. Meanwhile, this stuff that's actually could affect people's lives is happening, and you have an opportunity to talk to one of the head guys from Google who should know about this, and he's calling me a liar. He's saying the stuff I've got is fake, and everyone that's talking about is fake, and that he doesn't know anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the only one there. And there were some other media guys at the convention, but from what I saw, I was the only one asking questions. So how is it me, of all people, happen to be the only person there to know about this?
No, nobody else is interested. Nobody else has any questions here.
Project Dragonfly. You talk about Project Dragonfly. It sounds like something out of a James Bond film.
Right.
But here's the thing. I don't need to go on InfoWars to learn about this. This stuff is proven. This was in front of Congress a month ago, and you have guys such as Kevin McCarthy. Now he's the minority leader for the Republicans in Congress, saying this is some screwed up stuff. And then you have Democrat Senator Mark Warner saying this is some really screwed up stuff. So this isn't like a partisan thing at all either. This affects everybody.
Hey, Dan Smots here. I'm taking a second to interrupt myself talking to talk about myself because, you know, I don't get paid a penny for the hours and hours that I put into creating this show for you guys in your greedy little ears, and I've got a family to feed. To make that happen, I run my own media business called Goulash Media. If you have a need in anything from video production to graphic design to audio production and beyond, you can get it all for a painfully fair price at Goulash Media. In video, I do weddings, music videos, commercials, pageants, plays, etc., etc., etc. For design, I do photo editing, album art, logos, branding, business cards, merchandise, you name it. For audio, I do engineering, production, editing, jingles, and, well, podcasts. So if you've got a media need of any kind, or if you'd just like to give a little something back and help keep my children fed, check out all the endless options at my website, goulashmedia.net. That's goulash, Goulash, media.net, where we cater to the little guy with the big vision. Okay. Yeah, so with him completely denying Project Dragonfly exists, is this a thing that you can find out about through Google? Like, is it still an open thing, or are they company-wide denying it at this point?
They're company-wide denying it, but you could go on Google and you'll see mainly results regarding the congressional testimony, where you have a lot of the, prepared answers that Senator Bachai was actually giving. So when you go on Google, when you go on the news, you might find some things about the protests. But really, I've been using Bing, and all I have to do is do Google Scandal or Google Project Dragonfly, and I get everything I want.
Right.
So Google can't fight their own algorithm. But what I am seeing is that they're definitely, curating the content that they want you to see. And what they want you to see primarily is the congressional testimony that happened in December and the article saying that they canceled Project Dragonfly.
Huh.
So essentially what they've tried to do is on their own platform, they're trying to shift the narrative.
Yeah. Well, so get it more into the Project Dragonfly and specifics. Like, what is it that China was planning to use this for? Like, to what are the ramifications of Google being a part of this idea of censorship?
So essentially what you're doing is by Google entering the Chinese market, how does Google make money? How do we get our searches for free? We get it through advertising, through Google AdWords and everything else. So what you would have had was something that would have helped a lot of people in China if the Chinese had agreed to stop censoring the internet, and by bringing Google a superior search engine with all these advertising capabilities. So that way people can make money, people have access to more information. But the problem is, like in their current search engine in China, you can't talk about Tibet. You can't talk about Tiananmen Square. You can't find things that are critical of the Chinese government. Google, for all intents and purposes at the beginning, they're like, yeah, we're not really into that. But the Chinese were like, yeah, but how badly do you want to be in the market? And then Google was like, okay, let's keep the conversation going. So essentially what they would have done was they would have basically adapted the same Chinese censorship rules under Project Dragonfly. But the real suspicious thing is that, Google sells aggregate data to companies. And, people freaked out about that one firm that was buying data and selling it to the Trump campaign, but they also sell it to the U.S. government. It's aggregate data. It's not specifics, but it's numbers. It's trends. It's showing what people are interested in. Yeah. The Chinese wanted with Dragonfly specifically, which is what they needed Google's help for because they can't do it themselves, was that they wanted to basically pinpoint everything down to the IP address to actually find people. Mm-hmm. Because what they've already started instituting is a social credit score, which basically, China's like the best example of a surveillance state right now. If you do something wrong, if you search something, if you're late on a bill, if you jaywalk, they basically tally these points against you, and you can't take a loan, you can't own a house, you can't go to school, you can't attend certain things, you can't buy a ticket out of the country. So essentially, by using Dragonfly to pinpoint what these people are doing when they're behind the screen, you could institute in that. So not only would it have been implemented for their social credit score, but right now what we know is that there are hundreds of thousands of Chinese Muslims that are being put in concentration camps as forced work. This is public information. And we know pretty obviously how China treats their dissidents. So what you're going to have is you were going to have this giant corporation, which was going to help China create the ultimate tool of authoritarianism in exchange for some money,
Right.
because that's what they cared about. And, Democratic Senator Mark Warner from Virginia basically said, what if you have this in Iran or Saudi Arabia or North Korea? I mean, I think North Korea doesn't want a search engine.
Yeah.
But he was basically like, by working with the Chinese, what you're doing is you're creating the ultimate tool of authoritarianism in the 21st century.
Mm-hmm.
And he's absolutely right about that.
Yeah, it's 1984 shit. Like, they're 100% a cog in squashing thought and making thoughts crimes. It's bizarre.
Yeah, and I've been joking. I've been telling people that, I trust ISIS more than I trust Google, because ISIS tells you they're evil. ISIS tells you what they want. ISIS tells you their intentions. Google doesn't. And then when you try and question them, they get defensive and they accuse you of all these things. And then they're tight-lipped and they can't even give you a lot. They can't even lie to you. They can't say, "Oh, no, we never do that." They're just saying, "No, we'll keep the conversation going."
Right.
See how it works. So we just didn't have the resources. It's not because we got caught. No, it's not because we got caught.
Yeah. So for you personally, I mean, obviously the biggest issue is that Google, they put out a damn good product, so it's hard to not use their products, Chrome or Gmail or YouTube, what have you. Do you still use their products?
I still use Gmail, but I'm currently transferring over to Yahoo.
Yeah.
So within the next couple of weeks, I'm getting all my contacts and all my. I've got to find a way to get my Google Drive information out there. Luckily, I'm just like I went through it last night. I was just deleting a bunch of stuff. I've got to save a lot more things to my desktop hard drive. But yeah, no, I'm going to be moving out to Yahoo.com for my email provider. And as far as my search engine goes, I've already spoken to all my family, my friends. We're all moving to Bing.
Yeah. I've been using DuckDuckGo. Do you have any experience with that?
DuckDuckGo is really good. Well, I like it because, like, let's say you're researching something and next thing you know, you don't want to be seen as, "No, why were you searching that?" It's like, "Oh, I can explain." DuckDuckGo, they don't save your search history.
Right.
You have the private window option where you could peek into a website and not have your IP address go there.
Mm-hmm.
So, some people use it for scandalous purposes. I use it for research purposes, as anyone incriminating would say. But, I like Bing a lot.
Yeah, for sure. So we're moving back to Yahoo and Bing and all that type of thing. How long before MySpace gets a revival?
You know what's so funny? It's not just MySpace getting a revival. It's things like typewriters.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing, because we live in a world where everything is accessible to us within a matter of moments. We have the consciousness of all of mankind right at our fingertips, and people are worried, people are distracted, people can't focus, people want to slow down. You have a lot of people that are buying typewriters right now.
Really?
Because of that. And you have people that are getting.
There's that one typewriter shop that was still open, and they're like billionaires now. They're like, "Fuck yeah, we've been holding out for this day."
Just had to wait it out. Like, I use a Sony digital recorder, and I use that when I go and investigate places. And someone was like, "Why are you using your recorder? Why can't you use your phone?" And I was like, "Well, if someone smacks a recorder from my hand like they have in the past,
right,
I could replace a digital recorder that I could find on eBay or something. I can't replace my phone right now."
Right.
But secondly, it also comes from much more of a paranoia angle, I will admit. They can hack my phone, or they can get access to my phone. They can't get access to my digital recorder.
Yeah.
Like, it sounds like I've got duct tape over my webcam camera.
Right.
Like, here's the thing: it's all about access. It's about convenience when it comes to that stuff. But it speaks to something more. Like, I wrote a story about I'm doing a thing on alternative mental health treatments and medicine. And I went into a float tank, which is an enclosed pod, which is pitch black and it's soundproof, and you're in a a tub of water that's filled with 1,000 pounds of Epsom salt, and the water's heated to your body temperature, and essentially you float. You become like a floating brain. You become like just sheer energy consciousness because you're not able to feel certain parts of your physical body, and you're there for a while. It's nothing crazy, but it's catching on because people are realizing that it's not good to constantly plug yourself into the internet and all these other things, because you start to lose a little degree of yourself. What we're seeing with Google, Facebook, Twitter, etc., like we're also losing our freedom. And here's the sad thing, like it's consensual. Like I get it when people complain about the government getting their stuff, but we say, oh, it's consensual with Google. It's like, well, really, what else are we going to use?
Right.
We could use Bing, but does anyone really want to? Does anyone really want to go on DuckDuckGo? No, Google's the superior product. In the market, the superior product usually wins out. So you could downgrade yourself willingly, but it comes with a cost. It comes with the cost of convenience. So we'd rather have that convenience. People didn't really love Big Brother because they had to. They love Big Brother because they wanted to.
Right. So where do you see this going as far as the United States is concerned? Like, do you see a turn, people going the same route as you, where they're avoiding using these big corrupt conglomerates and going
I think what you're going to have is I think you're going to have a very solidified minority of the population that does. This is a topic which more people are talking about. Like Gen Z or whatever, the generation that comes after mine. Mm-hmm. And ours, they're not signing up for Facebook.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think Facebook and Google are promised immortality at all. People that are like, oh, use the Antitrust Act to go against Facebook. It's like, if we're still using Facebook in 10 years, like, that's a problem.
Right.
But I don't think it's going to be us. I think it's got to be a generational thing. I think they have to be phased out, not because of a big cultural backlash, but because it's inconvenient and it's inefficient.
Yeah, and you, the thing that we were initially supposed to be talking about on this episode was Facebook, because you've had some issues with that. Do you want to jump into that a little bit and give a little bit of your latest experience with Facebook?
Yeah, so I went on a Mance Raiders show, Free Man Beyond the Wall, a couple months ago, and I'll just admit, like, at the time I was leaving Facebook. Like, I left it entirely.
Yeah.
About a month and a half later, I had to get back on, not because I missed it or anything, but because, I'm starting an online business. I'm getting into a couple other things.
Yeah.
Like, I have to have Facebook to meet my clients. I have to have Facebook to create my brand. And
that's where I'm at.
Yeah, like it got to the point where it's like, shit, like people are going to think I'm a hypocrite. But here's the thing. I think I'm a good example that, in some cases you can't escape it.
Right.
It's like, oh, you can't have a business without a website on the internet. I can't start a predominantly online business if I'm not on Facebook. So I found myself with this dilemma, and it's like, crap, it's either I do this or not. I'd rather be making some money and able to support myself than go down as someone that's raging against the machine. And that's where I'm at. And in terms of like the censorship, like I still can't use some of my pages. Mm-hmm. I still don't have access to certain things. So I have a team of people that are helping me with a couple different pages, like my main one, Remso W. Martinez author, where now I'm not really posting a lot of stuff. I'm posting some of my articles, but my reach is like non-existent. Mm-hmm. And for some of my businesses, those are fine. Because what Facebook realizes is that, oh, he started a business, we can make more money off of him.
Right.
So I have pledged, like I'm keeping the pledge that I will not ever pay for Google advertisements again. I'm sorry, for Facebook advertisements again.
Yeah.
But, I lasted about 2 months, and then I had to come back.
Yeah. Well, so what was the big issue that you ran into that forced you to leave and is now making you begrudgingly on Facebook? Like, what was the crap that they were giving you?
Yeah, so my page, I had to submit identification and proof of where I was at least every other week. Some of my posts were being taken down like immediately. because they broke the content rules. And as I evaluated them, I appealed them because I was like, no, they did not break
What types of
user
posts were
guidelines.
those?
Criticisms of Facebook. Criticisms of Facebook.
Makes sense.
And it got to the point where it's like I had to constantly leave the location settings on my Facebook app. So I deleted the Facebook app, and next thing I log on my desktop, and they're like, "We don't know where you are." It's like, Facebook, I talked to you like yesterday. I sent in proof of residency and all this other stuff, and then it got to the point where they're like, "Yeah, you have a potential high reach on numerous pages, so we need your social security number."
Oh,
And I
God.
was like, this is bullshit.
Yeah.
So now I'm back. I waited a few months. I don't use those pages often. I have not gotten any of those notifications or any of those restrictions.
Yeah. Did you have to send them? Did you end up sending them your social?
No.
Yeah. Okay.
No. I just stopped using the pages, and I took a 2-month break, so I guess they must have forgotten about me.
Right.
Now I'm using stuff which is really, nothing really scandalous, but like I was on the Brian Nichols show back in August, and I said, guys, like with the stuff that Facebook's doing, they're going to start going after libertarians.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of libertarians thought they were safe because they're that awkward ground between we can be friends with the left and friends with the right. But what did they do? They went after everybody. They zucked liberty memes.
Mm-hmm.
They went after Cop Block. They went after anti-media.
Yeah.
And stuff. Like they got rid of everybody. Kerry Wedler, you name it. They went after the libertarians now because they see that we were a threat. And that was 2 weeks after, literally 2 weeks after, I went on the Brian Nichols show after giving some warnings about my experience from Facebook the past year. And I was like, listen, they're going to come for us. Mm-hmm. It's going to be bad. And it was, and it still is.
Yeah. So you're back. How's it been? You said that you haven't had nearly the amount of flagging or pushback or anything like that. Has there been any issues since you've been back?
No, but I'm just not on.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. Like I use Messenger because I have to use Messenger at this point. It's weird because I have the choice of not using Messenger, but it could be if I couldn't use Messenger. But I'm barely on.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the cost. I don't have free speech on Facebook. I can't do what I want on Facebook. Yeah. That's it. I'm red flagged. I'm wearing the scarlet letter on Facebook. So like I've got it and I'll use it when I have to. But other than that, like, I spend like no time on it.
Sure.
Because I just can't. There's no point to it anymore. The things that Facebook used to stand up for, free speech, sharing of content, all that stuff, I really can't do it at this point. Yeah. They've really minimized my capability to really utilize their platform. Mm-hmm. And this is something I've been worried about for over 2 years. And now it's at the point where, it's gone full circle. Like, some people had it worse than I did. But, I know many other people like me who are in the same position.
Yeah. So are there alternatives out there, or do you see the rise of any alternatives? You mentioned Minds a little bit, but do you see any of these other competing companies actually rising to the level of Facebook or the value of Facebook at this point?
Yes and no. And I think we really need to define what alternatives mean because, there are alternatives, but there are also, I think we really need to discuss competitors.
Sure.
And this might sound a bit strange, but like, Gab, for example, and I'm on Gab. You can follow me on Gab at Remso Republic. I've got a blue check mark on there. Mm-hmm. Gab is a Twitter alternative, meaning and Gab has been kicked off everything. I mean, their payment processors are down. At this point, they might have to start their own bank in order to process payments. I mean, I feel really bad for Gab, but Gab at the end of the day is a Twitter alternative. Everyone wants to use Twitter, but if you've been hit on Twitter, your only other alternative is Gab. No one really wants to be on Gab, but it's an alternative for people that are limited or were kicked off Twitter. Or protesting Twitter. I call Gab really a protest platform.
Yeah.
So there's that. I believe that if, let's say, Facebook were to stop being, I mean, Twitter were to stop being evil overnight, Gab would cease to exist.
Sure.
Minds.com, however, is a legitimate competitor because you could pay for advertisements, but it is based off the Ethereum blockchain, meaning that all of it is open source. You could take their white papers and you create your own version of it. But all the creators there, you own your content. It's absolute free speech, apart from stuff which is just outright illegal, like, you know, child pornography and threatening to kill somebody and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So apart from like the dark fringes of what it is, Minds really is the ultimate free speech platform, and it takes away that corporate authority by, you know, allowing the user to control the copyright on posts. Like, that's insane, but you can, and you own your stuff, and it's on the blockchain. So Minds is a competitor, which is why Facebook worked with Google to make sure that when you went looking for them or looking for an alternative, you couldn't find it.
Yeah.
So Minds, I think, is, you know, it is growing. It had around 30 million users. It is growing, and it is a competitor to Facebook. There are others, like there's Free Chalk 24, there's Codius, there were a bunch of others, but they just fail to really reach what people wanted with social media, which wasn't necessarily just a place to post photos and share stuff, but essentially it was, you know, like the Matrix. It's an extension of you where you can add everything and anything, and it's just fun. Facebook has the fun factor. All these others don't, and some of them are protest platforms. Like Codius, for example, is all boomer conservatives, and the platform sucks, and it's boring, and it's not fun. So, I mean, we're seeing like this uprising insurgency going up against the kings and queens of social media, the tech giants. But when you lack convenience, when you lack efficiency, and when you lack fun, it's just not going to work. And people think I overvalue the fun factor, but no one goes to a platform that's boring.
Yeah.
That's just, no one does.
Yeah. Yeah, it has zero value if people aren't having fun and aren't using it. So who cares? But as a free market libertarian, how do you see all of this going on? Because I mean, these are technically private companies that are creating monopolies that are squashing free speech and kind of squashing out the competition. So
yeah, I'm at the point where I don't even really think that they are private companies. Like, I don't think Amazon is.
Sure.
I don't, because Amazon hosts a good chunk of U.S. government servers.
Mm-hmm.
There's that, but you know, like Facebook, for example, Google, like they're de facto agents of the government, because like the amount of regulation, the amount of ties they have to have between different agencies and departments of the government in order to function.
Right.
Like I think that they transcended being private and, you know, just being pure subjects to the free market a long time ago. Sure. I think that we're really in, you know, an antitrust situation. And while I do not want it to come to that, you know, what options do you have? Like, you know, Gab, for example, they're really proof that, you know, we're not dealing with just a run-of-the-mill, bigger, better company. With Gab, they were kicked off GoDaddy. So that's like, oh, make your own platform, make your own website. So they did. Then they were kicked off PayPal. So it's like, make your own payment processor. So they're making their own crypto eventually. Mm-hmm. And then it's like, oh, you know, why is this happening? It's like, well, you kicked us off Twitter, so we made our own version of Twitter. So how much and why is this happening? Because all those services which they were using, which were kicking them off, would all be better friends of Google and Facebook and the others.
Right.
Like, how is it free when you're being unpersoned?
Right. When
you can't use basic things that everyone had access to. Not because you've done anything wrong, but because of a difference of opinion. Mm-hmm. Like, it's very disturbing.
It is. Do you see any hope for the internet moving forward? Like, is there any way to turn this around?
I think, and you know, I do believe that we're walking into antitrust waters, but you know, like I mentioned earlier, I think it's going to have to be a generational thing. I think people are just going to have to find ways to make these crony institutions irrelevant. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the only way to do it. And that's the cleanest way too, because if people, it's funny that the people that were saying, oh, the federal government is evil and would do all this stuff, they want the federal government to come in and fix this.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's like a Godzilla fight. Yeah, have him fight Mothra, but you're going to destroy a whole much more, a bigger chunk of Tokyo in the process.
Right.
So it doesn't make sense on that count.
Yeah, and you say it's a generational thing. People have to kind of buck the system. Like, what does that look like? What do you recommend people do?
It looks like right now it's TikTok is probably and I don't really know much about TikTok. I don't know who owns it, so I might be completely wrong. But TikTok is an example. It's the fastest growing social media site online, and essentially it's just Vine. Really, it's just an updated version of Vine. But what you have is a lot of these this next generation coming past the millennials that are like in high school right now, and they're not signing up for Facebook.
Yeah.
They're not using Google. They like Bing, not because Bing is cooler, but because Bing is the anti-Google. So it's cooler because it's juxtaposing what their parents use and stuff.
Right.
And they're not signing up for Facebook. They'd rather use TikTok, or they'd rather just not use social media. They don't like social media. That's the thing. That's something we're seeing. They don't like social media.
Sure.
So I do think it's a generational thing, and just like spontaneous order, we can't necessarily change what the big focus of the next generation is going to be. We could try, but ultimately they always have their own plans. So I think it'll just take time. I think things are going to get worse before they get better. But ultimately what we've seen is that, there's a reason why Standard Oil isn't around anymore.
Right.
There's a reason why we don't have a gaslighters union. I do fear automation to a big degree, but just in terms of workplace and corporate permanence and mortality, that's never existed. And I do think that within my lifetime, Facebook and Google will probably be obsolete, and they'll go the way of Ask Jeeves and MySpace.
Yes, we all forgot about that good old Butler Jeeves. Hopefully,
Never sold data or censored us.
Yeah.
We took it for granted.
Right. I miss you, Tom. All right. Well, Remso, any final thoughts on this topic? Any final suggestions or things you'd like to throw in there before we get plugs in here?
No, just don't believe the fake news, folks. The real information's out there, and you have more power than you think.
Right on. Absolutely. Well, Remso, go ahead and tell everybody one more time where they can find out all the information about you and your books, your podcast, everything you got going on, man.
If you're bored and you want to have something to take with you to the bathroom that can last the time that it takes to shit, you can go ahead and get my book, Stay Away from the Libertarians, on Kindle and print on Amazon today. Yeah, I love Amazon. I have a love-hate relationship with Amazon.
Yep. What do you do?
Yeah. What do you do? So, yeah, my book, Stay Away from the Libertarians. You can go ahead and check out my podcast, The Remso Martinez Experience, wherever podcasts are available. And this article and all my future work will be at A&D Magazine. It's just andsmagazine.com.
Right on. Well, Remso, it's always a pleasure, and happy to have you back on anytime. So thanks for being here, man, and I'll talk to you next time.
Thank you, Dan. Take care.
Hey, guys, thanks for sticking around to the end. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Remso as much as I did and always do. Remso's a great guy, and I always love talking to him and getting the scoop on crazy shit that's going on in the world. Remso and I have a lot in common. He's big into a lot of the political and the some of the paranormal stuff and even religious stuff. He and I have a lot to talk about, so it's always fun catching up with Remso. Definitely go check out his show, The Remso Martinez Experience, and his ghost hunting show, actually, The Witching Hour on YouTube and all the platforms. Check him out. He's got a lot of fascinating things going on. And look into, do your own due diligence and dig into Project Dragonfly. Like Remso said, it's kind of just, it's a name that makes you go, it just makes you assume that it's some sort of weird, I don't know, sci-fi shit that's going on, but it's more horrifying than that, actually. It's, as you heard, it's some crazy Orwellian bullshit that's going on, and Google is 100% a part of it. So dig into it. If you think that Remso is full of crap like Google is claiming, then dig into it on your own, and let's do our part in exposing Google for the crap that they're doing. All right. Also, please go join the System is Down forum. That is a place where we are having these civil, outlandish conversations, just talking about all the weird stuff in politics and conspiracies and religion, theology, culture, stuff like that. Remso is a part of that. So if you have any questions for Remso, if you have any questions for me, or if you have any topics that you'd like to bring up and discuss, a lot of the guests that we have on the show are also members of the forum, so you can get direct access to them in the System is Down forum, which you can find by going to tsidpod.com/forum, or just go over to the evil Facebook. It is still a part of Facebook, the necessary evil that it is, but we are kind of the anti-Facebook within the belly of the beast. You can go to Facebook and type in the System is Down forum and ask to join, and if you look like a human, I'll get you in there right away. But the way that even though we are in Facebook still, the way that we differ from Facebook is we treat people civilly. We are not screaming in people's faces, and we have opinions. We are humans, but we are treating humans like humans instead of treating them like commodities or numbers in the system, like a lot of these corporations seem to be doing. So let's keep that going. Let's keep building that community and having these civil conversations and discussing the important things going on in the world. And I would encourage you to do the same. Do likewise out in the real vastness of the world. If you find yourself at a bar having a drunk conversation, bring up some of this shit. People need to know about Project Dragonfly. They need to know about Google and the crap that they're dealing in. This needs to be out there. People need to be talking about this. Let them know. And we will continue to change the world together, one uncomfortable conversation at a time. Let's bring back the art of civil dialogue. All right. So also, all the platforms that Remso mentioned, we are now on. The System is Down is now on Gab and Minds and UgeTube, UGE-tube, which is kind of the anti-YouTube platform. Seems like all of these big evil platforms are slowly competitors out there that are trying to work their way into the market. It's going to be a long and treacherous road for any of them to really become, big competitors, but I am fully in support of them, especially if they are in support of freedom of thought. So the System is Down is now on UgeTube. It is on Gab and Minds and all those things. We are also on the typical evils of Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. So please go like, share, and subscribe, and we can also work to change the beast from within. Like, share, and subscribe to the show on all the platforms, and you'll get all the stuff that we've got going on. And I am posting, sometimes I post the same things to all the platforms, but sometimes I post little nuggets of different things and more more platform acceptable things on things like Minds and Gab, because I'm not concerned about getting kicked off of those or having the outrage on there and losing my credibility on those platforms. So if you want to support this show and support freedom of thought at the same time, I would encourage you to join things like Gab and Minds and YouTube, and let's do our part to shift the conscious, just the collective mob mentality in all these platforms over to something else. So go check those out. And also be sure to tune into the second weekly show that is on this part of the System is Down, Anti-News. If you are not familiar, it is the second weekly show that we do every single Wednesday. Craig and I get together and we cover all of the crazy shit that's going on in the world, and we poke fun at it. We give it the irreverence that it deserves, and we give our thoughts on the things. And again, it is not politically correct. It is often offensive, and there's a good chance that it will eventually get us removed from platforms like YouTube. But things that need to be said, and just having a good time poking fun at the things that people are outraged by, because, I mean, we're taking ourselves too seriously. If you turn on anything like Fox News or CNN or any of these freaking networks, it's just all the garbage, all the outrage, just lazy journalism too. People jumping on the first headline that they possibly can, trying to get the scoop and trying to make a bigger deal out of things than things really are. So come join us on the Anti-News. It is a fun, laid-back, and chill anti-news experience. So you can check that out by going to antinewslive.com, or you can listen to it wherever you are listening to this episode right now. That will be as well. So, blah, 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 blah. Thank you guys so much for listening. It is always a pleasure to have you, and I appreciate you with all my heart. Please continue to support the show and share it with a friend this week, and let's help build this thing into 2019 and spread the message of civil discourse and having human interaction and conversation and just freedom of thought. That is the main objective of this show. Spread the knowledge. Be open-minded, know what you believe, but listen to the person that you disagree with, because they might know more than you about a topic, and we can all learn a thing or two from the people that we disagree with. So get out there, share the show. Let's keep this thing going, getting bigger and better every single week. And thank you guys. I love you with all my heart. And yeah, tune in next week. We've got a great one coming then too. It's going to be with Jed Payne from Church and Other Drugs, talking about addictions and drugs and all sorts of things. He's got a fascinating story, so tune into that. It's going to be a great one. It was a fantastic conversation. I can't wait for you to hear it. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, please continue to, of course, question everything and stay uncomfortable, and I'll see you next Monday. Thanks. This has been a Goulash Media production. goulashmedia.net.
This concludes our broadcast day. Click.